Hello and welcome to this edition of TZM Global Radio. I'm your host for today, James Phillips from the UK chapter of the Zeitgeist Movement and TZM Education. Hope you're all doing well out there, guys. Today's show is about TZM Education because the update for the website is finally here and can be viewed at www.tzmeducation.org. I'm going to be doing a series of shows regarding this update and detailing some of the articles and materials that I've been putting on that website. So I hope you find them useful. Today's show is specifically about this the global-wide Action in Education project for the movement, which I'll be describing in just a second. But first of all, just a brief allude to the introduction of this radio show, which was Another Brick in the Wall by Pink Floyd. And the reason I used that particular piece of music is because it was the same piece of music that opened my very first TZM Global radio show, in which I initially launched TZM Education. Having gone back and reviewed those materials since, I have to say that they were, in my opinion, very poor, and the rantings of a rather enthusiastic but angry young upstart to the Zeitgeist movement. And I'm hoping that the new updated version will stand the test of time, as I've made sure it is as well sourced and as well backed by good evidence as possible. So without further ado, what I'm going to start off by doing is reading the front page statement to the website to give you an understanding of what it's all about. So the purpose of this site is to enable supporters of a natural law resource-based economic model to understand and appreciate the need to approach the education system in an effort to initiate the value shift required for a more peaceful and sustainable future to emerge. In the section Education Minds in the Making, you'll find many articles related to the topic of education and wider societal values and practices in general. These articles outline some of the potential problems with and suggested changes in these areas to aid in the transition to an NLRBE. In the Action in Education section, you will find a range of useful materials to start to enact this value shift in your local educational institutions. For a greater overall understanding of the NLRBE, please visit www.thezeitgeistmovement.com. If you require any further help in the navigation or use of this site, please feel free to get in touch via the contact section. And then it finishes with a rather nice ancient Chinese proverb that I've picked up from a very good organisation I'm hoping to work with in the future called Young Pioneers, who work with disadvantaged kids here in the UK. And that is, it is far easier to light a candle than to curse the darkness. I think that sums up where our efforts should lie, in my opinion. So, I'm going to move on now to the Action in Education introduction, which starts off with a video of my talk that I gave at London Z-Day 2014, which outlines this project as well as giving an example of the sort of approach that is most beneficial when talking to young people about this direction. So I recommend giving that a watch. The purpose of this section is to give members of TZM the chance to access and contribute towards delivering NLRBE concepts to young people of all ages, enabling them to work together towards a brighter future for their generation and generations to come. To help you in this regard, this section contains suggested methods of approach regarding how to go about getting an opportunity to discuss these ideas at educational institutions, collaborative and intriguing learning materials for different age groups in topics relevant to the transition to an NLRBE, email and letter templates to help approach schools and universities, as well as a letter promoting educational reforms conducive to the development of the train of thought necessary for an NLRBE, template PowerPoint presentations or pre-prepared videos regarding the current potential of technology to solve human and environmental problems. If you're going to use the presentation approach, it's advised to watch an example of the delivery of such a presentation beforehand by viewing the talk at the top of this section. If you would prefer to not use this approach, please feel free to use the pre-prepared videos instead. So why go into schools? Since adopting the communicative approach of going into educational institutions to discuss the NLRBE, I found it to be the most beneficial and rewarding of all approaches. One of the reasons for this is that children are far more likely to ask questions rather than jump to conclusions regarding the idea. The questions younger generations tend to ask revolve around how the nuts and bolts of the science and technology presented actually works, instead of getting bogged down in political wranglings or other preordained social constructs. The interesting point with these sorts of questions is that, as I'm not an expert in any one of these subject areas specifically, I very often find myself having to say I don't know, with far more regularity than in adult Q&As. This openness and lack of hostility towards the movement's message should not be put down to mere childish naivety. Children bring fresh eyes to old problems and rightly believe that they can change the world. It is these abilities that allow them to think outside the box with regards to the sort of world they would like to live in and the problems that they face. In fact, young people are very often a lot smarter and more capable of arriving at sensible decisions than many of the adult world give them credit for, a view well put across by Adora Svitak, in the following TED Talk. You can obviously find that TED Talk by just typing in her name, which is Adora, then Svitak. Very good TED Talk, well worth watching. Younger generations are also becoming more in tune with the notions of sustainability in the environment due to issues such as climate change and recycling being propagated in the media and in schools. This will likely make them more willing and able to appreciate the train of thought behind an NLRBE, and if they can appreciate and internalize these values early on, then they will be more likely to stay with them throughout adult life. Furthermore, they'll also be around for a lot longer than adults to be able to bring about the necessary changes to education and society to work towards the transition to a sustainable economic model. The need for a strategic and effective communicative approach. Surely, for a movement who advocate a strategic and efficient approach, we would want to spend our time by going to a place where we are guaranteed a good number of attentive and open-minded listeners, would we not? Schools and universities provide the best opportunity for doing precisely this. As things stand, going into schools has as yet not been taken up as a critically important strategy by the majority of NLRBE advocates. This, in my view, is a huge oversight and missed opportunity in our activism efforts thus far, one which you are now hopefully in the process of addressing by reading or listening to this. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. Before embarking on this task, it is essential that you've reviewed all of the films, lectures, books and information on the subject of the NLRBE as possible before engaging with children or any member of the public on such topics. If you come across as someone who has hastily rushed to the conclusion that this is a good idea, then people will assume that it has not been well thought through and dismiss it out of hand. The Minds in the Making section should hopefully provide many useful perspectives and materials to enable you to gain a better understanding of this direction, as well as some effective methods in delivering the ideas which comprise an NLRBE more effectively. First impressions are of critical importance, and it is our responsibilities as advocates of this direction to do our utmost to ensure that we communicate this information in a manner that the person we are engaging with can hear it best, rather than how we think they would like to hear it. Get involved. So please do join the global initiative to go into just one school or university to discuss these ideas, and we are confident that once you have, you will want to go into more. Please read the suggested methods of approach for activism in education before embarking on this project, as you should hopefully find some of the tips and advice suggested useful in this initiative. If you have any further questions, then please do feel free to get in touch via the contact link, and we'll be more than happy to help where possible. Disclaimer: people who wish to use the materials connected on this site in educational institutions should review the law in the area, region, country they are in with regards to contact with children, and take the necessary steps to ensure they meet all the criteria and legal requirements in this regard. The utmost responsibility and conduct must be taken at all times to abide with the rules and regulations regarding contact with children. TZM Education, the Zeitgeist Movement, or any other third party can in no way be held responsible for any individual who chooses to use the materials presented on this site. People who choose to use these resources do so as individuals and at their own risk. The views expressed by said individuals are not necessarily those of TZM Education, the Zeitgeist Movement, or any third party. So that's that article. I hope the disclaimer at the end sounds like it makes sense. Obviously, it is a sensitive area that we would be working in. That doesn't necessarily preclude us from doing it, but certainly I personally and anybody else can't be held responsible for the actions of people. But yeah, let's try and make sure that we go about this in the most professional way possible. And yeah, those are some words as to why this is a very important project for the movement. So, in terms of the suggested methods of approach for activism in education, I'm going to move on to read some of them now, as hopefully many of you listening to this show already agree that this is a very good project for the movement to be embarking on. So I'll continue on with that now. It's not what you know, it's who you know. The first step of going into schools or educational facilities to talk about such ideas is to start with friends or family who may be able to give you the opportunity of doing so. Much of the advice below will still come in useful, but this approach is naturally the easiest starting point. Don't let the answer be no. Teachers are very busy people. When they're in school, they're signing forms, doing paperwork, marking papers, and under pressure to secure good test results, to mention nothing of the actual teaching they're supposed to be doing. Therefore, exciting new exhibitions and presentations about science and sustainability can tend to slide down their list of priorities somewhat. So the first piece of advice is to remain patient, polite, and persistent. As mentioned in the introduction to this section, schools and universities actively promote science and sustainability, and this is our chink of light in the door, if you will, regarding our opportunity to go into schools or universities to discuss the tenets of an NLRBE. If at all possible, start off your communication with the notion of science and sustainability by stating that you are from an organisation that promotes the use of them as a tool to improve human well-being. Referencing TZM early on will likely put those you are communicating with on the defensive, as the word can seem a bit odd to those who are unfamiliar with it. Many of these institutions will usually be on a very tight budget, so as what we are offering is free of charge, it is a great opportunity for them to offer an extracurricular activity for which they do not have to incur any cost. Below are some of the step-by-step methods and particular approaches that I have found useful when approaching educational institutions. These are specifically orientated towards the sixth form citizenship lesson formats in the UK. However, the ethos and general approach can be adjusted for different means if necessary. Bear in mind that a lot of lessons can and will only be learned by engaging in the process itself, so please do not be afraid to get things wrong along the way. If you are reading this and take the following points on board, then I will have made most of these mistakes for you already. Don't worry, you don't have to thank me. Step 1. Phone them. Don't email initially is my advice. They get so much spam they will more than likely just delete it, or it may never reach the person you want it to anyway. The phone call gives you a chance to give them a heads up on who you are and what it concerns, to see if they even want to hear more about what you have to offer. If you type in the local area, county and secondary schools into Google, for example, the same could be done for universities or primary schools, etc., then you should be able to find compiled lists of schools in the local area and their contact details. Of course, in other countries the terminology changes, but the general approach remains the same. Then go through them systematically, making sure that you keep notes on who you've contacted and where you are in terms of your dealings with each of them. If you're doing this project with others, it may be a good idea to set up a shared Google document or something similar to help you all keep track of where you are in the process. Do not go into long-winded tangents and stick to the notions of science and sustainability for human concern as much as possible. There is not a school out there who will disagree that we need to be more sustainable and who would not champion science as a beneficial subject for students to learn. Just ask them if it is something they would be interested in and see if they would like an email sent on the topic with more details. That's your foot in the door, so to speak. Do not be negative or confrontational. It is far easier to attract bees with honey than with vinegar. Step 2. Send an email. There are many letter and email templates in this section for you to use as a starting point in this regard. These templates go into a bit more detail and include the TZM Global website as well as Peter Joseph's TED Talk Introduction to a Resource-Based Economy. This will give as concise an introduction as possible to the movement, meaning that busy teachers will be more likely to check it out. Step 3. Phone them back. Give them a week or so, and if you have not heard from them, then call back to ask if they received your email. Keep repeating this process until you are declined or accepted. Obviously, if you are declined, then politely move on and make a note of this so that you not call them back. If they accept, go to step 4. Step 4. Organize and prepare your visit. What kind of presentation you give will depend on the time frame you've been given and the age group you are giving it to. Ask what they would like you to cover, but be prepared to adapt to what the school timetable will allow. Sometimes I have just 15 minutes, other times a whole day, but regardless, the materials in this section should hopefully help you to provide an engaging experience for any age group or range. Check that the school has all the facilities you require, such as a screen with the correct connecting leads and audio facility and connection for a laptop if you're playing any videos. I learnt this lesson the hard way when my very first presentation images failed in front of 180 children and teachers. Most embarrassing experience, I must say. As mentioned in the introduction to this section, make sure you know your material. Ideally, you will be there on this front already, but there is nothing wrong with doing a little revision of the main points, statistics, and other relevant information before going into a school or university in question. With this in mind, make sure your presentation has been run through many times and well rehearsed. You may feel a bit strange talking it through to yourself, much as I am right now talking to this laptop in preparation for this radio show, but it really does help an awful lot with regards to delivering an engaging presentation. Reading from the slideshow is not advised if at all possible. It is far better, more engaging and fun to watch someone talk about something without reading it, especially for kids. Make sure that you take all the necessary leads and adapters, and if you can film it, then please do so, but bear in mind that many schools have a no filming policy, which you will need to ask about prior to the event. Try and see if you can get at least one member to go with you, if at all possible. It shows that there is an organisation behind your message and more than just one person who thinks it's a good idea. So step 5, showtime. Don't be late. Be early and check everything works before leaving the house. Something I always try to do before going into the presentation itself is to ask the kids not to believe a word I say. If they find the ideas interesting, then please do check them out further. If upon doing so they do not stand up to evidence, then drop them. As well as being a positive message to send to the next generation regarding the need to rely on evidence to base your judgments upon, it's also a wonderful way to disarm any suspicions they may have regarding your intentions, as you obviously made sure that you did your homework before coming to talk to them and are confident that what you are about to say can be backed up by evidence. When fielding questions, be polite, short, direct, and use evidence to back up your claims if possible, but talk in a language and a manner that the kids of the age you are talking to can identify and engage with. Above all, make sure you remain positive and polite. I've done presentations in a, shall we say, passionate manner, and it did not go very well, to say the least. As one TZM member who came with me to a particular presentation where I did this put it, I got what I gave. Last but not least, try not to stress out. We are only human and we're all learning on the job. The main thing is that you are out there spreading this information and train of thought. I'm convinced that after doing this, you will find it a fantastically rewarding experience, one which you will want to repeat over and over again. Step 6. Thank them. Hopefully you will be asked to come back at some point to talk to the wider school or a different year group, but if such an offer is not forthcoming, then ask. If you don't ask, you don't get. In conclusion, TZME would like to say a huge thank you to all of you for all your help in this global effort to take a positive action in education. If you have any questions, then just use the contact section of this website to get in touch, and we will be more than happy to help if we possibly can. And just to expand on that, I would very much appreciate, as I go forward with these radio shows, that you and radio shows in the future, for that matter, that you get in touch with us and let us know how your experiences went in school. Post them to Facebook. Get in touch with me on Facebook, and I'll repost them. And let's share the positive experience of going into schools and talking to kids. It really is. Just to reiterate, one of the most fantastic things that you can do in our efforts for transition to a peaceful and sustainable socio-economic system. So I hope that's all been beneficial. There are some other materials that I would like to briefly go through as well on this Action in Education section. I won't be going through all of them because some of them are won't necessarily need to be read out. If you choose to go in then to a school, and hopefully you will do so, then it will become obvious which section you should go to. So I've split off the activities into 3 different age brackets: 5 to 10, 10 to 15, and 15 to 20. And for instance, in the 5 to 10 age range, there's some interesting materials. I'm just going to go through just a sort of brief outline of what some of them are. There's some play-based math games that you can do that I've got in here. I've got collaborative games. I've got a big section on space and the universe and things of that ilk. I've also got a presentation that I pieced together that's useful to show to kids, and the PowerPoint for that if you wanted to do a presentation of it yourself. There's the World Peace Game in here as well that's well worth checking out. A very good TED talk on that as well that's included in here. What else have I got? I've got well, let's just have a look. I've got some out-of-the-box thinking, some problem-solving exercises, all sorts of hands-on and decent stuff. And yes, so in the 10 to 15 section, got some stuff about historical perspective and what the past looks like through our eyes now. You know, we sort of gawk at how primitive the human beings were before us, but it's sort of an invitation for them to go forward in time 500 years and look back at who we are and what we're doing today, to see what we'll gawk at in much the similar sort of sense. I think that provides a very good perspective for children to have. I go through some reasoning and logic and critical thinking, and some exercises involved in that as well. There's some efforts in communication and some games that you can play on that, as well as some humorous videos. A couple from a couple from Airplane and things like that. Some amusing sort of anecdotes from that, just to get some giggle going. And then Project Earth as well. Something I'm sure you remember us talking about in the past. Give the kids a brand new Earth. How would they design it? And that brings up many interesting subjects for discussion and project. Now, in the 15 to 20 age bracket, we're really starting to move into a bit more of an adult stride, so to speak. So a lot of it is involved around presentations, but of course you can use your discretion. If there's games you feel are appropriate to sort of play, then go ahead and do them. And there is a useful conclusion actually that I would like to read from this section that really plays into this activism project. And it basically states this: we're were just 200,000 of the over 500,000 members of TZM to go into just one school or university to give a presentation of this nature to 180 students and teachers, as I have done in sixth form citizenship lessons, for example, then we would reach a staggering 36 million young adults about to enter this current system. So please do not think that we cannot have a serious impact on cultural values or behaviour, as we very much can if we act efficiently and effectively as possible as a critical mass by engaging with those who are more likely to appreciate what we are saying. The scientific method and critical thinking, creativity and collaboration inherent to it are the utmost importance to reinforce in the delivery of the train of thought necessary for an NLRBE. Hopefully the materials contained in this section will help towards delivering a sustainable train of thought to the next generation. That's really the way we should be thinking. This is not a one-man effort, and through really in the interceding years between when I started TZM Education and now with this update, I have been doing a one-man project, partly for the reason of experimentation and partly because I just wanted to get on with it and get going. I've had to recognize that this is quite a foolhardy thing in the long run, because if you look at that statement I just made, were just 200,000 of the 500,000 members to go into just one school and talk to 180 kids, that we'd reach 36 million students. You can see that if we actually act as a collective group on this, that we really can have a staggering impact on the values that children are about to take into the world. And those values will have a knock-on effect. So I really do think that that should be bared in mind, that if you're sitting there thinking, well, someone else in the movement will do it, afraid that someone is actually you. So I know we all lead busy lives and what have you, but very often, if we take just a little bit of a second to take a look at our own actions and ask ourselves whether they're most beneficial, I'm sure we can all probably say that there's many things that we're doing in our efforts that don't seem strategic, that don't seem efficient, and that don't seem very effective, that may well be inward looking, that may well be a great big fat waste of time. So we're all capable of doing this. So just let's try to be as objective as possible and state that what I've stated today, doesn't it seem like possibly a more beneficial use of the very valuable amount of time that you actually have to dedicate to this? If the answer to that is, well, yeah, it probably is, and it's probably better than what I'm doing, then I would suggest that you should probably take it up, and nice and pronto too. Now there are some other letters on here, one of which is just a contact email and letter templates that you can send off to schools in your efforts to get your foot in the door, so to speak. But another one is about educational reform in general. Now this plays a little bit more into the minds in the making section, which talks about some of the useful endeavours by many involved in education that are perhaps unwittingly helping in this value shift towards the NLRBE. And I figured that including a overall letter to the teachers and the faculty in general at schools and the Department of Education in your specific countries would be useful if they're actually aware of a lot of the actual studies that have been done that help to increase the intrinsic motivation to learn in a child, something that seems to be largely overlooked by the educational system as a whole. There'll be more on that topic in future radio shows when I read through the articles in Minds in the Making, so I won't deliberate on that. But I think possibly reading out this letter might help to give some insight into changing the education system at large. I write to you as a concerned citizen who appreciates the importance that education plays in the development of a more sustainable, healthy and prosperous society. In recent years, I have taken a great deal of time researching this topic and have come across some information that I feel is of the utmost importance for everyone involved in education, and to which all should be made aware. Here is a brief summary of some of the findings of my research regarding some of the current educational approaches. The use of grades, praise and punishment. Grades, praise and punishment have been shown in multiple studies across a variety of cultures to do three things consistently with regards to motivation and creative ability. The summary of which is: 1. Decrease long-term intrinsic motivation in the subject or task in question. This is likely due to there being no reason for a student to take an interest in the subject once the grade or reward on offer has been obtained. 2. Limit the ability for the student to think outside the box, take risks, or to think creatively regarding the potential solutions to a given problem. This is because to take risks in assignments or assessments is to compromise the chance of getting a higher grade for the task in question. 3. To apply the bare minimum of effort to acquire the grade on offer. This ties into point 1 as once again, when the grade on offer has been obtained, there is little point to continue to actively pursue the topic beyond this point. Homework. Although there is a correlation between a positive effect on learning and homework, it is only found in the higher age ranges, 15 and above. And this correlation is a weak one at that. The way homework is currently set encroaches on family time, damages long-term intrinsic motivation towards learning, and reinforces the need to be motivated to please others rather than being allowed to take the time to look into what the student genuinely finds interesting. Were homework geared towards a student's interest, then it becomes far less of a detriment toward the development of an intrinsic love of learning. Solutions. These methods are a major staple of our current educational approach and no easy task to turn around. However, if the findings of these various vast and multiple studies contradict our current methods of approach and better alternatives exist, then it is our responsibility as parents and teachers to adopt what works to help the next generation to adopt a lifelong positive attitude towards learning. To look at the evidence mentioned in this letter in the detail required, I would highly recommend taking a look at the work of Alfie Kohn, Ken Robinson, and John Taylor Gatto as a starting point. I'm sure that you, like me, have the best interests of the future generations in mind and hope that you find the information contained within this letter useful in aiding you to do just this. If you wish to contact me, then please do feel free to do so by using the address, email or telephone number at the top of this letter. Thanks very much for your time. Yours sincerely. So that goes through some of the issues that are still withstanding in education. Please do feel free to adapt that, amend it. It's just useful to have these things already written out so that it gives you something to sort of work from. And that pretty much sums up the whole of the Action in Education section. The Minds in the Making thing is going to be rather longer affair and will be spread out over several radio shows. I would just like to say in advance another very big thank you to everybody, and to reiterate that if you have any questions regarding this project at all, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us at TZM Education, either myself, James Phillips on Facebook, or going to the website and sending a message through the contact section, or you can contact Sara dos Santos Mayo on Facebook as well, as she is also involved in running this project. So good luck, guys. I hope you have a positive experience going out there and changing the values of humanity.